Born in 1930, Ikutaro Kakehashi was just 2 years old when his parents died from tuberculosis, and he spent much of his youth living in Osaka under martial law. He studied mechanical engineering and simultaneously worked as a schoolboy worker in the Hitachi shipyards where Japan's midget suicide submarines were built. As a result, he witnessed a great deal of destruction in the last months of the war. Once World War II was over, and after failing on health grounds to enter the city's university in 1946, Kakehashi moved to the southernmost of Japan's 4 major islands, Kyushu. This offered a far more rural existence. And to survive, he took a day job as a geographical survey assistant. But at just 16 years old, he noticed that, with no watch or clock industry in post-war Japan, there was a thriving business to be had repairing existing timepieces. He was unaware of it at the time, but a chap named Torikusu Yamaha had also started out as a watch repairer, as had Matthias Hohner. Even the Hammond organ company started out as a subdivision of the Hammond clock company. Kakehashi was offered a part-time position in a watch repair business, but after a few months he had to leave when he asked to be taught everything in a few months, thus attempting to short-circuit the traditional 7-year apprenticeship. In response, Kakehashi bought a book on watch repair and set up the Kakehashi Watch Shop in direct competition with his former employer. This was a success, and he next decided to turn his enthusiasm from music into a business venture. It was no longer illegal to own a shortwave radio or to listen to foreign broadcasts. And scanning the airwaves for new music, Kakehashi learned the basics of how radios worked. He was soon cannibalizing broken sets to create working ones, and his repair shop started handling broken radios in addition to watches and clocks. Nonetheless, he still supplemented his income with agricultural work. Kakehashi spent 4 years in Kyushu, but when he heard that he could go back to Osaka, he liquidated his business to fund his entry into the city's university. Still just 20 years old, he returned but was struck down by tuberculosis in both lungs, the treatment for which quickly consumed all the money he had earmarked for his education. So, as the months in Sengokuso Hospital turned into years, Kakehashi supported himself by repairing watches and radios for the staff and other patients. At this time, Japan was about to broadcast its first television signals, and Kakehashi was determined to receive the first test transmissions. He borrowed enough money to purchase a cathode ray tube and, still confined to hospital, assembled his own receiver. Amazing though this was, it is almost incredible when you understand that Kakehashi had by this time spent 3 years in hospital. Indeed, his condition was gradually becoming terminal when he was selected as a guinea pig for the newly developed drug, streptomycin. Kakehashi's improvement was immediate. Within a year, he had left hospital. In retrospect, he was extremely lucky. The cost of streptomycin was such that he could never have afforded it, and had he not been selected, it's likely that he would not have survived. In 1954, unable to find employment, Kakehashi opened an electrical goods and repair shop which he named Kakehashi Radio, and this grew rapidly over the next 6 years. He changed the name to the Ace Electrical Company and was soon employing around 20 staff. But as early as 1955, he had decided to branch out, combining his electrical skills and his interest in music to develop products for the music market. Like Bob Moog in the USA, his aim was to produce an electronic instrument capable of producing simple monophonic melodies, so he started by building a theremin. However, he was disappointed to find how difficult this was to master. Later, exposure to Anand's Martinaut convinced him that a keyboard-based instrument was more likely to be successful. So he built a 4-octave organ using parts from a reed organ, bits of telephones, and simple transistor oscillators. Kakehashi admits that prototype number 1 sounded rather different from how he had hoped, so it never entered production. And in 1960, the year in which he founded Ace Electronic Industries, he designed an organ that was to become the Technics SX601. Nonetheless, the birth of the SX601 was no small achievement, and Ace Electronic were up and running as a manufacturer of musical equipment. 3 years later, in 1963, the company added guitar amplifiers to its product range. But Kakehashi's ambitions lay elsewhere. Like Tsutomu Kato, the man who founded Korg in 1963, and whose life has in some ways paralleled his own, Kakehashi was intrigued by early electromechanical percussion instruments such as the Wurlitzer Sideman. So, in 1964, he developed the Ace Electronics R1 Rhythm Ace. The Rhythm Ace was possibly the world's first fully transistorized rhythm machine. But despite interest and sample orders from American manufacturers, Kakehashi did not seal any manufacturing or distribution deals. The reason for the failure of the R1 is obvious. It produced sounds when you pressed buttons, much like today's drum pads, but it offered no pre-programmed patterns. The technological problems of producing repeating rhythms were themselves non-trivial, but Kakehashi and his colleagues overcame them by inventing a diode matrix that determined the position of each instrument in a pattern. Having done so, they were able to release the FR1 Rhythm Ace, which appeared in 1967. The positive response was immediate, and the FR1 was adopted by the Hammond Organ Company for incorporation within its latest line of organs. Ace Electronic were on their way. The relationship between Hammond International, the worldwide distributor of the organs built by the Hammond Organ Company, and Ace was a good one, and soon after they embarked upon their technical collaboration, Ace became the Japanese importer and distributor for Hammond organs. The following year, 1968, the companies formed a joint venture called Hammond International Japan. And in 1969, Kakehashi raised the capital to take over a derelict piano. An organ manufacturer, Zenongaki Shizu, in Hamamatsu. This factory was soon to become a major source of Hammond organs. And, of course, the sole source of Ace tone organs. By this time, Kakehashi and his team were heavily involved in designing new guitar amplifiers and effects units as well as rhythm machines. But it is perhaps for their combo organs that Ace are best remembered. These included the 3-Panga in 1965, the N1-Panga 1969, 5-Panga T06, Seven-Panga T08, and 9-Panga plus the more complex dual manual GT7. The GT7 is the most interesting because it appears to be the direct precursor of the Hammond X5. In 1971, Kakehashi became involved in a highly secretive development that Hammond codenamed Mustang. The Piper organ, the world's first single manual organ to incorporate a rhythm accompaniment unit, became one of the most successful products ever produced by Hammond. Unfortunately, continued infusions of capital eventually diluted Kakehashi's shareholding in Ace Electronics to the point where he had become a minority shareholder in his own company. Unfortunately, an industrial company accidentally acquired Ace Electronics, and Kakehashi found himself in the situation where he decided to resign and walk away. He did so in March 1972, leaving Ace Electronics, by now a company with a turnover approaching $40 million per annum, and Hammond International behind. It was time for something new. The birth of Roland. Video documentary inspired and adapted from Sound on Sound. The History of Roland, Part 1 and Part 2. Video editing by Marius. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and hit the bell notifications.